Welcome to my channel, my friend. Today, I want to ask you something very important. Have you ever felt tired of trying? Have you ever sat down with your books or with your dreams and thought, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I should stop? I know that feeling. Every one of us has carried it in our hearts at some point. Life is not always easy. Sometimes the road feels too long, the nights too dark, and the future too far away. But listen carefully. In those moments, there is a choice to stop or to take one more step. And today, I will share with you the story of a boy who chose to take that one more step again and again, even when the world told him to quit. His story is not only about success. It is about courage, about holding on, and about never giving up. As you listen, you will also learn English in a natural and simple way. Stay with me until the end, because this story may touch your heart, and maybe it will give you the strength to take your own next step. Open Book Chapter 1. A simple life in a small village. Far away from the noise of the city, hidden between green fields and dusty roads, there was a small village. Life in this village was simple. People woke up early with the sun, worked in the fields, and came back home tired but peaceful. It was a place where children played with sticks and stones, where neighbors knew each other's names, and where families shared whatever little they had. In this village lived a boy named Samir. Samir was not different in appearance from other children. He was small, thin, and had bright, curious eyes that always looked beyond the horizon, as if he wanted to see a world bigger than the one around him. His family was poor, but they were full of love. His father worked as a farmer, earning just enough to buy rice and vegetables for the family. His mother cared for the children, cooked food, and told them stories at night. Samir's family did not have much. His father could not afford new clothes or shoes for him. Samir walked barefoot on the rough, hot roads every day, but he did not complain. He carried his school books in a plastic bag because he did not own a proper school bag. Many times, the bag tore, and he would carefully tie it again with a piece of string, smiling as if it were new. School was far from his home, and the walk took almost 1 hour. Every morning, Samir left home with a small piece of bread in his hand, walking through muddy paths, sometimes under the burning sun, sometimes in the rain. When it rained, his books often got wet. He would dry them by the fire at night, carefully turning each page so they would not stick together. For him, these books were treasures, more valuable than gold. At night, the village had no electricity. Most houses were lit by small oil lamps or candles. After finishing his small dinner, Samir sat on the floor with his books open, studying under the dim light of a candle. His eyes often became tired, but he forced himself to continue reading, whispering words in English that he did not yet fully understand. He repeated them again and again, like a song. Apple, book, school, teacher. Samir's dream was clear in his heart. He wanted to become a teacher, not just any teacher. He wanted to be the kind of teacher who could change the lives of children in his village. He knew how hard it was to study with no shoes, no bag, and only one candle. He wanted to give other children what he did not have: guidance, hope, and encouragement. But there was one subject that touched his heart more than any other: English. To him, English was not just a language. It was like a key, a secret code that could open doors to the world outside his village. He had heard stories of people who traveled to cities, who found good jobs, who changed their lives because they knew how to speak English. Samir wanted that too, not only for himself, but for the children who would one day sit in his classroom. Even though he had no proper dictionary, no computer, no internet, Samir tried to learn. He listened carefully to his English teacher in school, even when the lessons were short and the classroom was noisy. He borrowed old English books from friends and copied words by hand into a small notebook. That notebook was his treasure, filled with his dreams written in shaky letters. Sometimes he would stand in front of a broken mirror in his home, pretending to be a teacher, speaking English words loudly as if his students were sitting in front of him. His younger sister would giggle, but Samir continued, serious and determined. Many children in the village did not care much about school. Some dropped out early to help their families in the fields. Some laughed at Samir when they saw him reading under a tree or walking barefoot with his torn plastic bag. But Samir did not feel ashamed. Deep inside, he believed that education was his only road out of poverty. He carried his dream like a secret fire in his chest, small, but burning brightly. One evening, after a long day in the fields, his father sat beside him. He saw Samir studying by candlelight, his small face glowing in the soft flame. His father placed a rough hand on his son's shoulder and said, "My boy, we have nothing to give you except our love. But if you keep working like this, one day you will give light to others." Samir never forgot those words. That night, as he repeated English words softly to himself, he felt stronger. He felt that even though he was poor, even though his feet hurt from walking barefoot, even though the candlelight was weak, his dream was not weak. His dream was strong, because it was not only for himself, but for the children of tomorrow. And so, in that small, forgotten village, hope began. It was not a hope born from riches or comfort. It was a hope born from struggle, from hunger, from the soft flame of a candle, and from the heart of a little boy who refused to stop dreaming. Because sometimes the biggest journeys start in the smallest places. And for Samir, his journey had only just begun. Open Book Chapter 2. The First Big Failure. The months passed quickly in the small village, and Samir's life continued in the same rhythm. Long walks to school, evenings with a candle, and whispers of English words in the dark. But then, one day, the headmaster of the school announced something very important. There would be a big English exam at the end of the term. This exam was not just an ordinary test. For the best students, there was a chance to win a scholarship to a better school in the nearby town. A scholarship meant free education, free books, and sometimes even shoes and uniforms. For most children, it was only a dream. But for Samir, it felt like a doorway opening to the world he had always imagined. When Samir heard this news, his heart began to beat faster. He thought to himself, "This is my chance. If I pass this exam, everything will change. I will study in a better school. I will learn real English. I will become a teacher. I will help my family." From that day, Samir worked harder than ever before. He woke up earlier, sometimes before sunrise, to review his notes. He stayed awake later at night, repeating words again and again while the candle slowly burned down to nothing. His mother often told him, "Samir, go to sleep. Your eyes are tired." But Samir shook his head and whispered, "Just one more page, Amy. Just one more word." He studied in the fields, sitting under a tree while his father worked. He carried his little notebook everywhere, even while fetching water or helping his mother. His classmates noticed his seriousness. Some laughed at him, saying, "Do you really think you can pass? Do you think the city will accept a barefoot boy with a plastic bag for books?" But Samir ignored them. Deep inside, He believed this exam was the bridge to his dream. Finally, the day of the exam arrived. Samir put on his cleanest shirt, though it was old and had small holes in it. He washed his face carefully in the cold morning water and combed his hair with his fingers. His heart was filled with both fear and hope. As he entered the classroom, he prayed softly, "Please, God, let me pass this exam. Let me make my family proud." The exam began. The teacher placed the papers on the desks, and Samir looked at the questions. Some were easy. He smiled as he wrote the answers. But then, as he turned the page, his face grew pale. Many of the questions were harder than he had expected. They were not like the ones in his small notebook. His hands began to shake. His mind went blank. He tried to remember the words he had practiced so many times, but they slipped away like water through his fingers. When the time was finished, Samir looked at his paper. Half of it was empty. His heart sank. He knew, even before the results were announced, that he had failed. A week later, the results were posted on the school wall. The children gathered around, pushing and shouting, trying to find their names. Samir searched carefully. His eyes moved up and down the list, but his name was not there. His chest tightened. He could hardly breathe. The other children who passed cheered happily, and Samir turned away quickly so they would not see the tears in his eyes. He walked home slowly, his feet dragging in the dust. When he reached his small house, he sat outside under the tree and cried silently. He thought, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this dream is too big for someone like me. Maybe I should stop. What is the use of trying so hard if I only fail? For the first time in his life, Samir felt like giving up. The fire inside him grew weak. He did not open his notebook that night. He did not light the candle. He simply lay on his mat, staring at the dark ceiling, feeling heavy with shame. But then, something happened. The next evening, while Samir was sitting quietly, his little sister, Amina, came to him with her small school book. She was only 7 years old, with big eyes full of innocence. She looked at him and said softly, "Bye. Can you help me with my homework? I don't understand this word." Samir looked at her face. For a moment, he wanted to say no. He wanted to say, "I cannot even help myself." But when he saw her trust, her small hands holding the book, something inside him changed. He took the book, read the words slowly, and explained it to her. Amina smiled brightly and said, "Thank you, Bai. You are the best teacher." Those words pierced Samir's heart. He realized something very important. His dream was not only for himself. It was also for his sister, for his family, for all the children who needed someone to guide them. If he gave up now, who would show them the way? That night, Samir lit the candle again. His eyes were still red from crying, but his heart was different. He whispered to himself, "Failure is not the end. It is the beginning. I will not stop." And with that, he opened his notebook and began again, one word at a time, one dream at a time. Because sometimes, falling down teaches us how to stand taller. And Samir had just taken his first step into a much bigger journey. Open Book Chapter 3. Working harder than everyone else. After the pain of his first big failure, Samir made a quiet promise to himself. One night, as the candle burned low and the shadows danced on the mud walls of his house, he placed his hand on his little notebook and whispered, "I will not give up. I will work harder than anyone. I will turn my weakness into strength." From that moment, Samir's life changed. He was no longer just a boy with a dream. He was a boy with discipline. Every morning, before the sun rose, Samir was awake. While the rest of the village still slept, He stepped outside barefoot into the cold earth and helped his father on the farm. The ground was wet with dew, and the air smelled of soil and grass. He carried water, cut grass for the animals, and helped plant seeds. His small hands became rough and strong, his back bent with work, but his spirit remained straight and unbroken. After finishing his morning chores, he picked up his old plastic bag filled with books and began the long walk to school. The road was muddy during the rainy season, dusty during the summer, and freezing during the winter. Sometimes his feet sank deep in the mud, and he arrived at school with dirty legs and tired eyes. But he never missed a single day. He told himself again and again, "This is the price of my dream. I will pay it gladly." At school, Samir listened more carefully than anyone. While some of his classmates whispered or played games in the back, Samir's eyes were fixed on the teacher. He wrote down every word, even the ones he did not understand. If he could not write fast enough, he asked his friends later and filled the gaps in his notebook. Slowly, that little notebook became his treasure chest of knowledge. But Samir knew listening in class was not enough. He had to do more. At night, after finishing dinner, he sat on the floor of his home with his books spread around him. The only light came from a single candle. Sometimes the wax dripped on his hands, but he did not stop writing. His mother often said, "Samir, your eyes will become weak if you study so much." But Samir just smiled and replied, "Ammi, my eyes must be strong if I want to see a brighter future." One of Samir's special methods was practicing in front of a mirror. He stood before the broken piece of glass that hung on the wall and pretended to be both the teacher and the student. He asked himself questions in English and answered them. He repeated sentences again and again, watching his own mouth move. At first, his words sounded strange, but slowly his tongue began to move more easily. The mirror became his silent friend, his secret classroom. He also filled many pages of his notebook with English words. Sometimes he copied the same word 20 times until his hand hurt. "Apple, apple, apple," he wrote. Then, "Teacher, teacher, teacher." He had no expensive textbooks, no computer, no internet. But he had determination, and that determination was stronger than any resource. At school, his classmates noticed his strange habits. They laughed when they saw him talking to himself in front of the mirror. They teased him when they saw him writing the same word again and again. Some called him the crazy boy. Others said, "Why are you wasting your time? You will never leave this village." But Samir did not argue. He did not shout back. He only worked harder. Deep inside, he believed that one day, the same children who laughed at him would respect him. He believed that discipline was his only weapon, and he sharpened it every single day. And slowly, something began to change. The same classmates who once teased him began to notice his progress. During lessons, when the teacher asked a difficult question in English, sometimes Samir was the only one who raised his hand. When he read aloud, his voice was clearer and more confident. When his friends forgot a word, Samir helped them. The laughter slowly turned into silence, and the silence slowly turned into respect. Some classmates even came to him after school and asked, "Samir, can you help me with this word? Can you explain this sentence?" Samir always smiled and helped them, remembering how his little sister once gave him strength. Day by day, Samir's routine continued. Farm work at dawn, a long muddy walk to school, careful attention in class, and study by candlelight at night. He was not the smartest, not the richest, not the strongest, but he was the most disciplined. and discipline, little by little, began to turn his weakness into strength. Samir understood something important. Success is not a sudden miracle. It is the result of small steps taken every day. It is waking up when others are sleeping, studying when others are playing, and working when others are giving up. His dream was no longer just a hope. It was becoming a path built on discipline, sacrifice, and love for learning. And though he still had no shoes, no school bag, and only one candle, Samir now had something more powerful than all of that: the respect of others and the belief in himself. Because discipline, he realized, is the bridge between dreams and reality. And Samir was building that bridge one word, one step, and one candle at a time. Open Book Chapter 4. People laugh, but he keeps going. As the weeks turned into months, Samir's routine stayed the same. Early mornings on the farm, long muddy walks to school, careful listening in class, and nights with his candle and notebook. His dream had not changed, but something else was happening. People had begun to notice him, and not everyone was kind. At school, many of his classmates could not understand why Samir worked so hard. "Why do you repeat the same word 100 times?" one boy mocked. Another girl giggled. "Are you trying to be a foreigner?" When Samir stood in front of the mirror and practiced English sentences, the other children laughed behind his back. "Look at him," they whispered. "He talks to himself like a madman." Samir felt the sting of their words, but he did not reply. He wanted to shout, "You don't understand. I am building my future." But instead, he remembered the lesson he had taught himself: silence is stronger than anger. So he kept his head down, his lips closed, and his hands busy. Even in the village, adults sometimes laughed at him. Old men sitting on the tea shop bench would shake their heads and say, "This boy is wasting his time. English is for city people, not for us." A neighbor once told his mother, "Why don't you tell your son to help more with work instead of wasting hours with books? Books don't feed the stomach." His mother defended him softly, but even she sometimes worried. She saw the wax burns on his hands, the tiredness in his eyes, and she wondered if maybe the neighbors were right. But when she watched Samir teaching Amina new words, or saw the fire in his eyes when he repeated an English sentence, she kept quiet. Deep down, she trusted her son's determination. Samir, meanwhile, learned a powerful truth. When you chase a dream, people will laugh. Not because the dream is wrong, but because they cannot see what you see. And he decided to let their laughter pass like the wind. Then one day, something happened that changed everything. A new teacher arrived at the school. His name was Mr. Rahman. He was younger than the other teachers, with glasses and a kind smile. Unlike most teachers in the village, Mr. Rahman had studied in the city. His English was smooth and confident. On his very first day, when he spoke a few sentences in English, the children looked at him in awe. Samir's heart leapt. "This is the teacher I have been waiting for," he thought. From the beginning, Mr. Rahman noticed Samir. While many students sat lazily in class, Samir's eyes were sharp, his hand always ready to write. One afternoon, after class, Mr. Rahman asked him to stay behind. "Samir," he said gently, "why do you look so tired these days? Do you work very hard at home?" Samir hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, sir. I help my father in the fields. But I also study at night. I want to learn English very well." Mr. Rahman smiled. "I can see that. You have something rare, discipline. Most children give up quickly, but you do not." For the first time in his life, someone outside his family had recognized his effort. Samir's eyes filled with tears, but he quickly wiped them away. "Thank you, sir," he whispered. From that day forward, Mr. Rahman began to encourage him. Sometimes he gave Samir an extra word to practice or a sentence to translate. Once, he even lent Samir an old English storybook with torn pages. Samir held it as if it were gold. At school, the laughter did not stop. His classmates still joked, still whispered behind his back. But now, when Samir walked to class, he walked taller. He knew that at least one person believed in him. And sometimes, that is enough to keep going. One afternoon, when the boys teased him for writing the same word 20 times, Samir looked up and simply said, "One day, you will ask me to teach you." Then he went back to his notebook, calm and steady. And though they laughed louder that day, his words stayed in their minds. Samir had learned the greatest power of silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is strength. Silence says, "I do not need to fight you. I am too busy building my dream." With Mr. Rahman's belief, with his own discipline, and with the courage to ignore the laughter, Samir kept walking forward. Step by step, word by word, candle by candle. Because the truth is simple. People laugh at dreamers until the dreamers win. Open Book Chapter 5. Finding a mentor who changed everything. Life has a strange way of sending help when we need it most. For Samir, that help came in the form of a new teacher, a woman who would change his life forever. Her name was Miss Theory. She was unlike any teacher Samir had ever met. She was young, confident, and her English flowed like music. When she spoke, the classroom grew quiet. Her voice was clear, her sentences smooth, and even the students who usually ignored lessons leaned forward to listen. But what made her special was not just her English. It was the way she looked at her students, not as poor children from a forgotten village, but as seeds with the potential to grow into tall trees. From the very beginning, Miss Theory noticed Samir. She saw the way he sat in the front row, the way he wrote every word carefully, the way he whispered sentences to himself even when others laughed. Unlike other teachers who sometimes dismissed him as too serious, Miss Theory admired his dedication. One afternoon, after the final bell rang and the students rushed out, Miss Theory called out, "Samir, could you stay for a moment?" Samir's heart raced. Did I make a mistake? Did I do something wrong? But when the classroom grew silent, Miss Theory smiled at him. "I've been watching you," she said gently. "You work harder than anyone else here. You remind me of myself when I was your age." Samir blinked, surprised. "Me, madam?" "Yes, you. I can see the fire in your eyes. You want to learn English, don't you?" Samir lowered his head, almost shy. "Yes, madam. I want to become a teacher one day. I want to help children in my village." But his voice broke. "Sometimes people laugh at me. Sometimes even I feel like giving up." Miss Theory leaned forward. "Samir, listen to me. People laugh at what they don't understand. But laughter cannot stop a dream. Do you know why?" Samir shook his head. "Because dreams live here." She pointed to his chest. "And no one can take them away unless you let them." That day, Samir walked home with her words echoing in his heart. For the first time, he felt that someone truly understood him, not just his dream, but also his struggle. From then on, Miss Theory became more than a teacher. She became his mentor. After class, she often stayed behind to help him. She corrected his pronunciation, explained grammar patiently, and even taught him small tricks to remember difficult words. But more importantly, she taught him lessons about life, about discipline, courage, and hope. "Samir," she once told him, Discipline is the bridge between dreams and reality. Courage is the boat that carries you across. And hope is the wind that pushes the boat forward. If you have all three, nothing can stop you. Samir wrote those words in his notebook and read them every night. One day, Miss Theory brought surprising news. "Samir," she said, "there is an English camp in the town next month. Students from many schools will attend. They will practice speaking, reading, and performing in English. I want you to go." Samir froze. "Me? But madam, I've never been to town. And what if I fail? What if they laugh at me?" Miss Theory looked at him firmly. "Samir, failure is not your enemy. Fear is. This is your chance. You must go." The following weeks were filled with nervous excitement. Samir practiced day and night. He repeated dialogues in front of the mirror. He read aloud to his little sister. He even practiced introducing himself in English while walking through the fields. His father smiled quietly when he saw his son talking to the cows in English, as if they were students. Finally, the day of the camp arrived. The town was bigger and noisier than Samir had ever imagined. The camp was held in a large hall filled with bright lights and dozens of students, all dressed neatly with proper school bags and polished shoes. Samir felt small in his worn clothes and bare feet. For a moment, his confidence trembled. But then he remembered Miss Theory's words, "Dreams live in your chest. No one can take them away." He took a deep breath and stepped forward. During one activity, students had to stand in front of everyone and introduce themselves in English. Samir's turn came. His hands shook, his heart beat fast, but he stood tall. "My name is Samir," he began. His voice cracked, but he continued. "I come from a small village. I want to be a teacher. I believe English can change lives." The hall grew silent. Samir thought he had made a mistake. But then, something magical happened. Applause. The students clapped for him. Some even cheered. His cheeks burned, but inside his chest, something lit up. For the first time, Samir felt the power of recognition, not just from his family, not just from Miss Theory, but from the world outside his village. He realized that even though his English was not perfect, people respected his courage. That night, as he walked home from the camp, he felt different, stronger, braver, more alive. And in his heart, he whispered, "Thank you, Miss Theory. You lit the fire inside me. I will never let it die." Because sometimes, it takes just one mentor to change the course of a life. Open Book Chapter 6. A second chance to prove himself. The English camp had changed something deep inside Samir. For the first time, he felt that his voice mattered, that even a poor village boy with bare feet could stand before others and be heard. But life was not finished with him yet. Another test was waiting, one that would push him further than ever before. One Monday morning, as the students sat in class, Miss Theory entered with an unusual brightness in her eyes. She held a paper in her hand. "Students," she announced, "I have exciting news. Next month, there will be a regional English speech competition. Schools from many villages and towns will take part. Each school will choose one student to represent them. It is a chance to test your English, your courage, and your heart." The classroom buzzed with whispers. Some students looked nervous, others excited. Samir felt his stomach twist. A competition? Speaking in English before strangers? His hands grew sweaty just thinking about it. Then Miss Theory added, "And I have already decided. Our school's representative will be Samir." The room went silent for a moment. Then the laughter began. Some boys whispered, "Samir?" "The barefoot farmer boy." Another girl muttered, He talks to himself in the mirror. How can he speak in front of a crowd? Samir lowered his head, shame burning in his cheeks. But Miss Theory's voice was firm. I chose Samir not because he is perfect, but because he is brave. And that, my dear students, is what matters most. That evening, Samir sat under the flickering candlelight, thinking about the competition. His mind was filled with doubts. What if I forget my words? What if they laugh? What if I fail again, like I did in the big exam? But then another thought came, soft yet strong. What if I inspire someone? What if my story gives courage to another child, just like Miss Theory gave courage to me? And with that thought, he knew what his speech would be about, dreams. For the next few weeks, Samir prepared like never before. He worked on the farm at dawn, walked to school through the mud, and then spent every spare moment practicing his speech. Miss Theory helped him polish his words, but she always reminded him, Samir, speak from your heart. The heart speaks louder than perfect grammar. At night, Samir practiced before the mirror, his plastic bag of books at his side. Sometimes his sister Amina listened, clapping and laughing when he stumbled. "Bye, you sound so serious," she teased. But her little smile gave him courage. The day of the competition arrived. The event was held in a large school hall in the nearby town. Students from different schools filled the space, all neatly dressed in uniforms, shoes shining, hair perfectly combed. Samir felt out of place in his old shirt and worn sandals. For a moment, the fear almost swallowed him. But then he remembered Miss Theory's words. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to be brave. When his name was called, Samir walked to the stage. His legs trembled, his palms were sweaty, but his heart beat strong. He looked out at the crowd, teachers, students, and judges. For a second, the world felt too big. Then he took a breath and began. My name is Samir. I come from a small village. I want to tell you about something very important, dreams. His voice shook at first, but then it grew steadier. In my village, many children stop studying because life is hard. They say, what is the use of dreams when we have no shoes, no light, no money? But I believe dreams are more powerful than hunger, more powerful than darkness. Dreams are the fire that keeps us walking, even when the road is long. He paused, his eyes shining. I failed my first big exam. I wanted to give up, but then I remembered my little sister. She needed my help. My village needed me. And I realized dreams are not just for ourselves. They are for the people around us. That is why I will never stop. And I hope you will never stop, too. The hall grew silent. For a heartbeat, Samir thought he had failed. But then, slowly, the applause began. First one person, then another, until the whole hall clapped loudly. Some even stood up. Samir's chest filled with a warmth he had never felt before. Later, when the judges announced the results, Samir's name was called. He did not win first place, but he received something even more precious, the Most Inspiring Speech Award. As he walked to the stage to collect his certificate, he saw Miss Theory smiling proudly. His classmates, who once laughed at him, now looked at him with respect. And for the first time, Samir realized something powerful. Success is not about being the best. Success is about being brave enough to stand up, to speak, to keep going. That night, as he lay under the stars outside his small house, Samir whispered to himself, courage opens doors that fear keeps shut. Today, I open one of those doors. And tomorrow, I will open more. And deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning of his journey. And that my friend, is the story of Samir, the boy who walked barefoot to school, carried his books in a plastic bag, studied under candlelight, and still found the courage to stand on a stage and inspire others. His life teaches us something powerful. No matter how many times you fall, no matter how many people laugh at you, if you keep moving forward, step by step, you can reach your dreams. Learning English is also a journey like Samir's. Some days you will feel strong, and other days you will feel tired. You may forget words, make mistakes, or feel shy. But remember, every mistake is just a step forward. Every small effort is a brick in the road that leads to success. If Samir could turn his struggles into strength, so can you. If this story inspired you and helped you learn English in a simple and natural way, please subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who also needs encouragement. And in the comments, tell me your story. I want to know, what is your dream, and how are you working toward it? Thank you for watching, my friend. And always remember, your dreams are waiting for you. Don't stop walking toward them, because the next step might be the one that changes your life.